Dr. Lyra Voss stood at the edge of an emerald grove on the newly charted planet of Sithra 7, her heart racing with the thrill of discovery. The air shimmered with the strange phosphorescence of alien flora, casting an otherworldly glow that danced across her visor. Here, beneath a violet sky dotted with two suns, every rustle of leaves whispered secrets of life forms yet to be understood. As a xenobiologist, Lyra had dedicated her life to unraveling the mysteries of the universe's myriad species, and Sithra 7 was a veritable goldmine. Her research team had gathered tales of bizarre mating rituals and enigmatic reproductive cycles among the native species. But as she delved deeper into the alien landscape, she hoped to uncover something unprecedented. The soil beneath her boots crunched as she moved cautiously, her eyes scanning the horizon. Suddenly, a glimmer caught her attention. Half buried in the ground, an artifact shimmered like a jewel. Curiosity ignited within her, and she knelt, brushing aside the dirt to reveal the object. It was ornate, swirling patterns etched into its surface, glowing with an iridescent light. It resembled a toy more than a tool of any advanced civilization, a toy. She mused aloud, her fingers tracing the carvings with a mix of awe and skepticism. What secrets do you hold? As she examined it closer, the artifact pulsed in response to her touch, sending ripples of energy through the air. With a start, she realized it was more than it appeared. This object had a life of its own. Her heart quickened, not just with excitement but with a whisper of foreboding. What if this trinket was the key to understanding the reproductive behaviors she sought? Just as she contemplated the implications, a shadow loomed overhead, blocking the sunlight. Startled, Lyra looked up, her breath hitching in her throat. Before her stood a figure draped in dark, imposing armor, Raxer, the warlord of the Sereni Imperium. The stories of his ruthlessness had spread like wildfire, igniting fear in the hearts of those who knew of him. What have you found, human? He demanded, his voice a thunderous growl that reverberated through the grove. His gaze narrowed, fixating on the artifact in her hands. Lyra's heart raced. It's, just a toy, she stammered, the bravado draining from her voice. She could see the contempt etched across his face. A toy. Raxer's laughter echoed, harsh and mocking. You believe your kind's reproduction methods are mere playthings? In that moment, as their eyes locked, Lyra felt the weight of the universe pressing upon her. The artifact, which had promised discovery, now teetered on the brink of conflict. Would her curiosity draw her into a battle for her life, or the fate of two worlds? The air thickened with tension as Raxer towered over Dr. Lyra Voss, a titan of power wrapped in a cloak of shadows. His presence was like a storm brewing, crackling with unspent energy, and for a fleeting moment, Lyra was paralyzed by a cocktail of fear and fascination. The artifact hummed softly in her grip, almost as if sensing the imminent confrontation. What have you uncovered? Raxer pressed, his voice a rumble that sent vibrations through the ground. Speak quickly, or I will take it from you by force. Lyra swallowed hard, her mind racing. The tales of Raxer's merciless conquests flooded her thoughts, drowning her instincts in dread. She was not just a xenobiologist, she was an intruder in a domain ruled by war and ambition. Still, something about the warlord's piercing gaze ignited a spark of defiance within her. It's an artifact, she stammered, clenching the glowing object tighter. I believe it's connected to the reproductive behaviors of this planet's species. Raxer leaned in, curiosity flickering in his dark eyes. Connected? Explain yourself. Taking a deep breath, Lyra felt the weight of countless hopes resting on her shoulders. This artifact might hold insights into how the native species reproduce. It could provide information on their mating rituals and social structures. Understanding these things could be crucial to what? He interrupted, the skepticism in his voice clear. Your kind's feeble attempts at reproduction. Lyra bristled at his disdain. It's not just about reproduction, Raxer. It's about connection, legacy, and the essence of life itself. We don't merely produce offspring, we nurture relationships that define us. Raxer straightened, crossing his arms as he regarded her, his expression unreadable. Relationships? You think that's strength? My people value power, not bonds. We are warriors. We conquer and thrive. Lyra sensed the divide between them, a chasm of understanding so vast that it felt insurmountable. Yet, the gleam of the artifact ignited a flicker of hope. Perhaps strength can be found in both approaches. Power is important, but so is understanding. It can lead to peace, to alliances rather than endless conflict. Raxor's laugh echoed, harsh and filled with disbelief. Peace? Your kind prattles on about feelings and emotions while we fight for survival. What do you know of strength? More than you think, she replied, her voice steadying. I've seen the strength it takes to love, to protect what matters. There's power in vulnerability. His gaze intensified, curiosity warring with contempt. You claim your kind's reproduction is rooted in strength? Show me what you mean. Lyra's heart raced. This was the chance she needed to bridge their worlds, to illuminate the essence of humanity through her words. Let me show you, then. I'll demonstrate how love can forge bonds stronger than any weapon. As Raxor watched her intently, Lyra felt the artifact pulse against her chest, a reminder that her greatest discoveries might come from the most unexpected places. With her mind racing, she prepared to unveil the depths of human connection, hoping that even a warlord like Raxor could learn to see the strength in love under the violet sky of Sithra. 7. The tension crackled like static in the air as Dr. Lyra Voss faced Raxor, the warlord of the Sereni Imperium. The chasm between their worlds felt impossibly wide, yet here they were, standing on the precipice of understanding, or destruction. Show me what you mean, Raxor urged, his voice low and gravelly, yet tinged with an unmistakable curiosity. The fierce lines of his face softened ever so slightly, revealing a hint of intrigue that Lyra clung to like a lifeline. Drawing in a deep breath, she began to speak, her voice steady. Let me tell you about the bond between a parent and a child. She thought of her own family, of laughter echoing through sunlit rooms, of quiet moments filled with love. In human culture, we cherish our relationships, especially with those we bring into the world. It's not just about reproduction, it's about nurturing the next generation, teaching them, loving them unconditionally. Raxor's brow furrowed, his expression a mix of skepticism and curiosity. You care for your young. How is that a form of strength? We forge warriors from birth. That is our legacy. Lyra pressed on, determined to break through the barrier of his rigid beliefs. But do you ever consider the emotional cost? The fear of loss? We face heartbreak and joy, both of which teach us resilience. Love is a strength that binds us together in the face of adversity. Love is weakness, Raxor countered, his voice a thunderous challenge. When you love, you become vulnerable. Your emotions can be exploited. A warrior does not allow such frailty. With a sigh, Lyra decided to share a personal story, hoping it would resonate with him. When my mother fell ill, I felt helpless. I fought against the odds, did everything in my power to care for her, to keep her alive. That struggle forged my resolve. I would not let her go without a fight. My love made me stronger, not weaker. Raxor shifted, the hardened lines of his face softening as he listened, though skepticism lingered in his gaze. You claim love fuels your strength. But in battle, does love protect you? Or does it invite ruin? In battle, perhaps, she admitted. But in life, love propels us forward. It is the foundation of our societies, our cultures. Without it, we are merely survivalists. Devoid of connection and purpose. He paused, contemplating her words. You suggest that love can be a weapon, then? Lyra nodded, sensing the crack in his facade. Exactly. Love motivates us to protect what we cherish. It drives innovation and fosters alliances. Imagine if you could wield the strength of emotional bonds in your conquests. Raxor's eyes narrowed, caught in the tension of possibility. You propose I could conquer with compassion? Yes, she urged, feeling the urgency of the moment. Compassion can disarm enemies and forge powerful alliances. Imagine the strength in not just creating warriors but in nurturing a legacy of respect and understanding. The air hummed with electricity as Raxer processed her words. The silence stretching between them like a fragile bridge. Would he dare to consider a new path, one that intertwined power with the soft resilience of love? Or would the weight of tradition bind him to the very ideals he sought to shatter? As the sun dipped lower in the violet sky, casting long shadows across the grove, Lyra felt the weight of Raxer's gaze on her. She could sense the gears turning in his mind, the internal battle between his ingrained beliefs and the possibility of something new, a new way of thinking, of conquering, that didn't rely solely on brute strength. What you suggest is treasonous to my people, Raxer finally spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of 1,000 generations. The Sereni have always thrived on strength and domination. To entertain this idea of love, of compassion, it could unravel everything we've built. Lyra's heart raced, both from fear and the flicker of hope ignited by his words. But what have you built, Raxer? A legacy of blood and conquest? Is that truly what you want to be remembered for? You have the power to reshape your legacy. To be a warlord of honor and wisdom, not just fear. He stepped back, considering her words, the lines of his face taut with conflict. The artifact still pulsed gently in her grasp, and she held it up, allowing its glow to illuminate the space between them. This artifact could be the key. Imagine it as a symbol of unity between our worlds, a bridge of understanding. What if it could help us both? Unity. Raxer's voice was laced with skepticism. What do I gain from uniting with the weak? Lyra took a step closer, her voice lowering to a whisper, a plea woven into her words. Strength comes in many forms, Raxer. The most powerful beings know when to wield strength and when to offer mercy. You could become a legend, not just for your conquests, but for your wisdom in understanding both your enemies and your allies. The warlord's eyes darkened with a storm of thoughts, wrestling with the concept of compassion. For so long, he had seen vulnerability as a curse, but now it began to take on a different hue, a form of strength he had never considered. You are asking me to betray my culture, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Lyra corrected gently. I'm asking you to evolve it. Cultures change, they adapt or become obsolete. What if you could lead your people into a new era? An era of strength born from understanding and cooperation. He turned away, his silhouette stark against the glowing landscape, and she could see the tension in his shoulders. The inner conflict raged, a tempest of pride and possibility. For a moment, the winds of change rustled the trees around them, echoing the chaos in his mind. Consider this, she continued, her voice steady. If you choose the path of strength without compassion, you may conquer worlds but lose your soul in the process. But if you embrace the duality of strength and love, you could become a beacon of hope for not just your people, but for all species. Raxer's silence hung thick in the air, heavy with the gravity of his impending choice. Would he remain a warlord defined by fear and dominance, or could he dare to tread the uncharted territory of vulnerability and empathy? In that moment, the fate of two worlds hinged upon a single decision, a single heartbeat echoing through the grove. The artifact in Lyra's hand pulsed again, a heartbeat of its own, and in that moment, she hoped it could illuminate the darkness of his doubt, guiding him towards a future they could build together. The air crackled with electricity, a blend of anticipation and uncertainty as Raxer stood before Lyra, caught in the throes of an internal struggle. The vibrant hues of twilight enveloped them, casting long shadows that mirrored the weight of his decision. At last, he turned to her, his voice a low rumble. You speak of strength in love and compassion, but my people are not ready for such a radical shift. They know only conquest. If I were to embrace your ideals, I would be perceived as weak. They would see me as a traitor. Lyra's heart sank, but she pressed on, her conviction burning bright. You're not betraying your people, you're leading them toward survival. The universe is changing, Raxer. Empires built on fear are crumbling under the weight of resistance. You have the power to guide them into a new era of strength, one that values both might and empathy. Raxer hesitated, his gaze drifting toward the horizon, where the last remnants of sunlight flickered like embers. What would that look like? He asked, vulnerability seeping into his tone. How do I convince a culture that has thrived on war that compassion can be their greatest weapon? Lyra stepped closer, sensing the shifting tides of his thoughts. You start by showing them, by leading through example. Share the wisdom of both our cultures. Open discussions about the possibilities of alliances. Explore what it means to coexist. Allow them to see that strength isn't just about power, it's also about the bonds we forge. He remained silent, his brow furrowed in deep thought. Then, a faint flicker of resolve sparked in his eyes. And if they resist? Lyra smiled gently, her heart hopeful. Change is always met with resistance. But history has shown that those who adapt survive. You can be the catalyst that ignites this change. Show them how love and strength can coexist. Raxer's expression shifted, uncertainty mingling with determination. Perhaps I can start with you. If I introduce you to my council, they will listen. But they will also challenge you, test your beliefs. Are you prepared for that? I am, she replied without hesitation, her heart pounding. If it means opening their eyes to a future where strength is measured not just in weapons, but in understanding, I will face whatever comes. With a newfound clarity, Raxer nodded, the fierce resolve of a leader sparking in his eyes. Very well. If you believe in this so strongly, then I will allow you to speak to my council. But know this, if you fail to convince them, I will not only lose their loyalty, I will lose my own. Lyra's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and fear. She understood the stakes, the weight of their worlds rested on the fragile bridge they were attempting to construct. Then let's do this together, Raxer. We can forge a path through the chaos. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, they stood united in their purpose, two souls from vastly different worlds converging in a shared vision. But as they moved forward, the shadows of doubt lingered, and Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that the path ahead would be fraught with danger. Raxer's fierce reputation loomed large, and the council's reaction remained uncertain. Would they accept this radical change, or would they cling to their long-held beliefs? Resisting the very notion of compassion? Only time would tell, and in that moment, they had to trust in each other and the fragile bond they had begun to forge. The grand chamber of the Serene Council was a cacophony of voices, a swirling tempest of opinions and resistance. Raxer and Lyra stood at the front, their contrasting presence stark against the backdrop of armored warlords and shrewd counselors, each adorned with the insignia of their lineage. The air felt thick with skepticism, a palpable tension vibrating through the ornate hall. Raxer stepped forward, his voice commanding, yet beneath it, Lyra sensed an undercurrent of uncertainty. Honored counselors, he began, today we gather not just to discuss strategy, but to explore a new path for our future, one that encompasses not only conquest but compassion. A murmur rippled through the assembly, and the skepticism in the air became a physical weight pressing down on them. One of the older counselors, a wiry figure with sharp features and an even sharper tongue, rose to challenge. Compassion? You seek to weaken our resolve, Raxer. The Sereni thrive on strength. Our enemies do not know mercy, and neither should we. Lyra took a deep breath, the moment she had been preparing for finally upon her. With all due respect, counselor, she interjected, her voice steady but firm, strength without compassion breeds fear and animosity. You may conquer today, but it will only breed resentment for tomorrow. You face a galaxy that is changing. Empires built on fear are collapsing. What if your next battle is against an alliance of those who have united against your tyranny? The chamber fell silent, all eyes darting between Lyra and Raxer, the tension electric. She could see Raxer's fierce pride battling against the council's entrenched traditions. Her heart pounded in her chest, knowing she had to seize this moment. Imagine a world where the Serini are not only known for their might but for their wisdom, Lyra continued, her voice rising above the whispers. Where you forge alliances based on respect and understanding rather than coercion. You could lead a new era, a renaissance of strength that is not merely wielded, but shared. Raxer nodded slightly, his gaze intent on the counselors, gauging their reactions. I brought her here because I believe she speaks the truth. We have fought long enough without thought of the consequences. It is time we evolve. Time we learn to wield our power with grace. Another counselor, broad-shouldered and intimidating, stepped forward, his eyes narrowed. And what do you propose, outsider? How can we trust that these ideals of yours will not lead us to our doom? Lyra sensed the shifting tides in the room, the fragile balance teetering. Trust is built, not given, she replied, the words flowing like water from her lips. Let me help you understand the value of love, compassion, and community. Let me show you how to wield these as weapons far mightier than any sword or gun. A profound silence followed, and Lyra could feel the weight of their gazes pressing down upon her. Would they accept her words? Would they see the truth in her vision? Just as doubt began to creep into her heart, Raxer stepped beside her, his presence a reassuring anchor. I believe in her, he stated, his voice resonating with conviction. I have seen the strength of her resolve and the truth in her words. Together, we can build a legacy worth fighting for, a legacy that honors both our histories and our futures. The counselors exchanged glances, uncertainty etched on their faces. It was a gamble, a bold leap into the unknown, and as the tension lingered, Lyra held her breath, praying that the winds of change would sweep through the chamber. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the eldest counselor spoke again, his voice a low rumble. Very well. We shall consider your words, but understand this, if you fail to convince us of this new path, it will not just be you who pays the price. The warlord will be held accountable for treason. A fragile hope flickered in the air, and as Lyra met Raxer's gaze, she felt an unbreakable bond form between them, two beings from disparate worlds, united in their quest for a brighter future. Now, the real challenge lay ahead, proving that strength and compassion could not only coexist but thrive. The reckoning had begun, and together they would navigate the treacherous waters ahead, fighting for the dawn of a new era.